perhaps the most exciting World Series of this century so far. And one person who was there was Kirk LaPointe, who's joining me from Toronto right now. Kirk, it's the day after. What is the mood like in Toronto?
Not exactly jubilant, but not entirely somber. I think people recognize that this was an entity, the Toronto Blue Jays, that finished last season, 74 wins. They improved upon that by 20 wins, which is pretty large in a league that actually doesn't easily let you climb up. And took on everybody, and really got down to 2 outs before they had the World Series in their hands. And then it slipped away. And then the opportunity to tie it up in the last at bat, broken bat, double play ball to end the game, end the series, end the hope. But people kind of left annoyed, sorry, disappointed, but we're not seeing people in desperate straits today. For the first day, and quite a few, I'm not wearing any Blue Jays garb, but I think people will start wearing it again in a few days, and I think they'll look forward to next year.
What was the mood inside Rogers Centre Game 6 when the freak incident of the ball getting wedged underneath the ad board in the outfield, wedged beneath that and the warning track? It was called a ground rule double. There's some precedent that says that the umpire could have just rolled it out there, or even the outfielder could have just rolled it out and continued play. But that stopped the Blue Jays from rallying to possibly win it on Game 6.
The trouble with this whole thing is that this is a better thing to see on television than to try to determine what was happening by sitting in the stands. I think in a lot of cases here, people just didn't quite understand what that ball wedged in the underneath some sort of cushioned outfield wall. I think that's one of those things where sometimes it makes a lot more sense to watch it on TV, where you get all this explanation. And we're still really not with a very good understanding as fans in the stadium on what we saw and why it needed to be interpreted that way. And I think that's one of the things that just happens. We saw a lot of these things that were very close plays. Now we have really good video replay. We have all kinds of ways now in which to understand, and this is really the last. Let's be honest. This is the last World Series that will be purely human umpired. Now what we're going to have will be some automatic, pitching interpretation on balls and strikes next year in the major leagues. So I thought that the vibe inside the stadium in Game 2, Game 6, Game 7, the ones that I saw are great examples of a team that really fought hard right to the end. And there were some disappointments.
Well, what next for the Blue Jays? Can Mark Shapiro, the president, and manager John Schneider keep this group together, maybe add a few more free agents just to bolster themselves to make a run next year?
They should. I mean, the organization took itself up a couple of levels for sure. The money will start really rolling in on the basis of that. I think the Jays brand will be even bigger. And we ought to be able to see money for the team to start going and acquiring some particular pieces of their roster that are necessary. They have to sign Bo Bichette, I think. I think he and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are a combo. They've kind of been teens together. So they've been together for 9 years in the organization. And I think it behests the team to try to find a way to make sure that they sign this guy. They don't have anything quite like him in the way of a natural hitter. He'll be much in demand as a free agent. So we'll see what that goes there. They have some pitching decisions to make. Max Scherzer is 41. We'll see if he's going to come back. Shane Bieber, who they got at the trade deadline, is coming back from Tommy John surgery, and now we're going to see if the former Cy Young Award winner decides that he's going to exercise an option to move on, or whether he's going to re-sign with the Jays. You've got a guy like Chris Bassett, really beloved pitcher, but again, aging along. Whether he accepts moving from a starting role to the bullpen. So those to me are the main ones that they have to decide on. I would say yes, those four guys, but they probably need to go out and find yet one more starting pitcher if they can, because I think what it really was evident of in the course of the playoffs is that they really did kind of cobble together a starting rotation. Nobody thought that Trey Savage was going to be this phenomenal player. And, he still is learning. And I think you could expect that because of the way baseball is put together, it's a bit of a cat and mouse game where you're each studying each other and figuring it out. Will Savage be quite the force that we saw in him in his first half dozen starts? I think last night it was only his ninth appearance in the major leagues. So, what do the Jays have with this guy at age 22? So we'll see what they have. He could be the ace next year, or he could experience the kind of logical regression that comes with baseball, where you're chasing hitters, the hitters are chasing you all the time.
If you look at the TV ratings, the preliminary TV ratings basically say that there were more people per capita in Canada watching the World Series than there were in the United States. And of course, there's the international audience, especially Japan. But what will this do for the sport and the business of the sport in Canada?
Look, the Jays are, in my view, the only multi-generational national team that we root for. The Raptors will eventually get there, I think, but they still kind of skew young in examining the business. I think that probably what you've got is 30 years of pent up frustration, teams that were quite mediocre. And what you've got now is a very well-heeled organization at Rogers to basically sell the game nationally. They lock up, of course, almost all of the television dates for it, with the exception of some games on Apple. And look, they sell the team as far across Canada as they can. As the minor league team in Vancouver is one of them. And you've really got bars from coast to coast and merchandise sales from coast to coast. And we really treat it as a national team in a way that we don't any of the hockey teams. We don't any even in terms of other types of sports. In football, the Jays are a national force, and so they're going to be very good for the overall business of sport and the business of baseball in Canada.
And of course, you referenced the Vancouver Canadians. There'll be a lot more people getting interested in the Canadians when they return to the pitch, the field at Nebula Stadium in the spring, because people will be wanting to see who the next Trey Savage is.
I don't think you're going to see year after year a phenom rise 5 levels in the major leagues and getting to pitch in the last game of the World Series. I think that's kind of one and done. But I think it is going to be good in terms of regularly cultivating a group, and we'll see if the Jays in Buffalo and in other cities where they're cultivating this have the same developmental speed that we saw this year with Savage. They have other prospects. They'll obviously be coming up to a draft soon, and there'll be, I think, the opportunity to show how an organization like the Blue Jays can actually develop players quickly. That given the right talent, they can take you very far very quickly.